Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Sending lots of love your way. Love to know what you're doing to love yourself today. Because as many of you know, love starts within. And what is happening in front of you is a direct replication or mirroring of what's happening inside you. So this took me a long time to learn, a long time to learn because I really didn't remember when I came down here, or definitely in my relationships, that they're reflections of where I am on my journey. And I think today is so powerful because it's a good reminder of how much do I love myself? What am I doing to love myself? And how am I filling up my cup? So I'd love to know how you're filling up your cup today. I think so many of us just don't make the time to do things we love. I feel like we take ourselves out of our schedules so much and so often. And I just wanted to jump in here now before we start this amazing interview with Beckett about Gene Keys, that it is important that you put yourself back into your schedule, that you do things that inspire you, that you explore things that are calling you. I just had a call with someone yesterday that was in between jobs and was saying, I just don't know if I want to do this. I'm not really sure if it's what I need or what I want. And I said, just put your hand on your heart and say, lead me to my life's work. Lead me to my life's work. Because if we believe that we are not rowing the boat alone, that we are not on this solo path, one, it's just more reassuring. But two, it invites our angels, our guides, God, or whatever you call your higher self, to come in and help you along your way. Help you along your way because it's so hard to do this all yourself. It's almost impossible at times to do this yourself. And you really need to call in your guides and call in your angels. And they are waiting for you to invite them in. So if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know what to do next, or I feel so alone, or I don't feel loved, all of that starts within. All of that starts within. And that's really why I wrote the book Seeking, because I needed to find out who I was. I was so used to chasing and being and creating that I did everything outside of me. When I really had to sit in the quiet moments by myself, I realized that I didn't have that warm and fuzzy. In fact, I found myself beating myself up all too often. And I think for many of us, we don't know where to start or we don't know how to get out of our own way. And we definitely have trouble sidestepping our ego mind that really lives in fear, worry, self doubt, anxiety. And seeking is something I've documented of how I've sidestepped that self doubt, how I've raised my energy, and how I aligned with my life's work. Because for many of us, it doesn't seem very easy, but sometimes we need a guide, and it's a great way to do that. So happy Valentine's Day. And I'm very excited to introduce my dear friend and guest today, Beckett Johnson. Hey, Beckett, how are you?
Okay, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Well, hopefully you can hear me. I'm not sure why.
Wait.
Maybe adjust a little bit, but I think maybe in the settings you can adjust the audio. But I think today what we're going to be talking about as Beckett gets online with his audio is gene keys. And, Beckett and I have been friends for probably over 4 decades now. And we have been through the twists and turns of friendship. We've been through the twists and
No
turns
idea.
of figuring out ourselves. We've had the twists and turns of learning how to live with different circumstances that have come our way. And I'm excited to share that Beckett has the ability and the gifts that help so many. So he took the liberty of learning human design, which is really based on your birth date, your birth location, and your birth time. And all of us have a human design, which is really fantastic to know because it gives us insight to how we like to work and what we like to work on and how we sort of lean into our knowing. But he's taken things even further into gene keys. So I'm super excited to talk about that today. Hopefully you can hear me, Beckett.
I'm trying to hear you. I can hear you a little bit, but
Great, great. So do you want to introduce yourself?
yeah, sure. We can do that. My name is Beckett Johnson. I'm an actual intuitive life coach, or what I like to call integration coach. And I use tools with my clients like human design and gene keys to help people transform obstacles that they feel like they just cannot get over in some way, shape, or form, and teach them how to actually shift those into being benefits versus hindrances.
I love that because as I opened with the Valentine's message, I was talking about how we often have to sort of dig into who we are to change what we see. And if you're not feeling loved or you don't feel like you fit in or you're not really sure where you belong or what you should be doing now, all of that starts within. So the fact that you started with uncovering and maybe leaping over some of those obstacles is perfect because I feel like many of us think we should be able to do it alone. And I know I haven't been able to do it alone. I've met with multiple energy practitioners. I've read so many books, watched so many videos. So how did you know before you got into Gene Keys? How did you know like that you needed to look into new tools and new exercises or activities to help you sort of move through obstacles?
It's a good question. I think for me, I've always been one, and that's part of my design to investigate unusual modalities. But I think once I had my brain injury, it really kind of taught me a new way to navigate things in your life because I couldn't take a standard path. So it opened me up to experiencing maybe unusual or unique modalities that most people wouldn't even consider because I figured if it's not hurting me, then why not try it? It might help me. So I kind of took that theory and then pertained it to, okay, if I can do that physically and help myself get over things, then how can I help myself transform emotionally and personal development growth and mindset wise? And so that's what really kind of led me into then experiencing all these other modalities like enneagrams, strength finders, human design, all those fun things now.
I love that. I love that. And I'd love to dive into every one of those. But what I really want to focus on is gene keys because you hear about gene keys in passing, I would say. It's not something that you often pop onto Instagram or even a friend group and you're like, hey, have you dove into your gene keys lately? So can we just give sort of an overview of what gene keys are?
Yeah, gene keys, how I like to break them down and make things pretty simple is gene keys are your energetic blocks that you're going to face in your life on your different paths. So whether it's your relationships, whether it's your career, whether it's your prosperity, whether it's your life purpose, these are things that you're always going to bump into these the rest of your life, right? Because there's three parts to a gene keys. There's a shadow, there's a gift, and there's a siddhi. And so it's really the map of saying, like, when people come to me all the time, and the key that most people want to know about is the attraction key because they want to know relationships and, why do I keep attracting the same person? And the key will pretty much tell you why. This is why you're
Mm.
attracting the same person, because this shadow, this lesson, this energetic block that you need to learn to work with within yourself and transmute and shift is going to keep coming up. And these people are going to keep helping you face that.
Mm.
So it's really, I try to make it as simple as that is it's your energetic blocks that you need to work with.
That's so interesting because I've done gene keys with you so many times, and it's so true. Like sometimes we just can't get out of our own way. We have blocks that are buried deep within, could be from this lifetime or past lifetimes. And we're like, why do I keep running against this wall? Maybe not physically, but within a relationship or with a coworker or with a manager. And I'm a huge believer in leveraging energy practitioners to help you figure out how to move the energy out that's no longer serving you. So, how do you get to your gene keys? Like someone's sitting here saying, okay, that sounds interesting. I need that. But like, how do they get to their gene keys? Is it something they look up on Google?
Yeah, you can go to Richard Rudd, who created Gene Keys, right? And he learned under the guy who created human design. So it's, they kind of building blocks on top of each other. But you can go to their website, Richard Rudd Gene Keys, and pull your gene key profile. There's 64 gene keys because they're based off the I Ching. So it can seem very dense. You'll get you can get your full profile. You can break it down between the three paths and see which key is, and it will kind of give you this overview of the key, but it can be very hard to understand or decipher. I know people that look it up and go, "This is great, but what do I do with this? Like, I don't know what this is saying." So,
Yes.
and Richard was like, you can contemplate on these keys, but what I realized is most people don't even know what meditation is, let alone contemplation. And then, he had to write a whole book on how to contemplate. So I'm like, okay, how can I take these tools that are super informative and helpful and transformative and make them really simple for people to know this is what it is and this is why it's important to me and this is how I use it. So I've made the gene keys into archetypes, characters, because everybody likes books. Everybody can relate to a hero or a villain or, this person or this side character. And so I'm like, okay, let me give each gene key an archetype and say, this is the essence, this is the energy of this key. And then what I do is break it down for you if you really want to learn. So you can go get your profile. You can do Richard's thing. You can see your keys, but I guarantee you're going to want a little more insight. You can even buy the book. He has a book. I have it. It's behind me. It's like this, and most people aren't going to read that. You have 11 keys that pertain to you in your life. And so it's how can I make those super simple and apply them and shift to the things I want to do?
Right, right. And I feel like for me, I don't know, time is of the essence. And I'm a big believer in investing in other people that have done the heavy lifting. And you have done that. So you started out with human design, which uses the same essentially uh, data points as a birth chart, which I love birth charts. But then, so once you do human design, do you do human design and gene keys together, or can you do those separately?
You can do them separately. I suggest doing them together because I think human design is a good foundation. Human design, what I say, is like your blueprint. It's like the cogs, it's like the parts of you, right? It's like this is the essence, this is how you work energetically. Then gene keys for me is the keys that open up all those different parts and really get you to understand those parts and transform certain areas. Some people might be, I don't know why I'm here. What did I come here to do? And gene keys will tell you that. What is the most environment that I work best in? What is, what modalities fit me? It will dive deeper into the details, but you don't have to do them both. It just depends where you are. I suggest both because I think it's a nice overall package.
Yeah, and you do such a nice job. I mean, the way you deliver the information is so helpful, and it gives you a booklet to kind of go back to and see and read up on it. And it's just really interesting. And I think the more you understand about yourself, the easier it is to move through the world because you can catch yourself in situations being like, oh, I see this coming. I did this before. I need to break that behavior, or I need to love myself more to know that I deserve better. So, as you think of your clients, because I know you do this for people all over the world,
Mhm.
can you tell us, like without names, can you tell us a story of something that where somebody, their gene keys sort of opened up an aha for them that maybe helped them move through a situation or changed, essentially changed the way they moved in the world?
Yeah, I worked with a client who, again, the attraction key kept going to the attraction key, and his was oppression. And so when we really dove in and dived into his childhood and then into his adulthood and even his career, he could see where he always put himself in oppressive states or was in oppressive states, but he learned to be a chameleon instead of learning to be himself. And so the key in that was like, you're going to find yourself always oppressed until you learn to be you, until you learn that you don't have to transform yourself to fit in with everybody. You can be loved just for who you are. And so, it would come up all the time. And even there was instances where he would reach out to me and be like, I don't understand why this is happening and this is going on. I go, that's in your gene keys. If you look at it, and he'd be like, oh, I mean, we worked on just that key for 7 months. But in that, he really started to break free of his masks of what he would call, and realizing he was a bit of a people pleaser, and why that was holding him back, and not only his career, but his friendships and his relationships, and understanding like, this is not serving me. This is a mechanism I learned as a young kid to fit in because I was bullied, and then I became really good at morphing into the situation to be, but I've never been me. And so now he's wholeheartedly like embracing himself, and he's seeing his life completely shift. He's seeing more authentic relationships. He's seeing invitations now to guest speak on things. And he's like, oh my God, like his whole life is just shifted in that one key. And that's just one out of the 11 that we've worked on. So, I mean, it's that
This is
transformative.
It is that transformative. And I think that when you're working with coaches, and there's so many great coaches out there, but this type of insight gives you more ability to work on like the crux of why
Right.
you show up that way. Why do you get in those types of jobs? Why do you get in those types of relationships? Why do you do that to yourself? Because you have a gene key that really holds the insight to how you hold energy and some of the energy blocks that are coming out through your work and life.
Yeah. And for him to know that, right? So there's a gift always in the shadow. And that's what you're trying to get to, is the gift. It's how can I get to the gift in the shadow? And the gift for him is understanding that once he learns to transmute oppression, then he can teach others how to also not do that
Hmm.
and just be themselves. But he has to be able to give that to himself first before he can do that for anybody else.
And oppression in this sense is like kind of holding yourself back or holding yourself down.
Yeah, playing small.
Playing small, playing small. So many of us play small until we don't, right? And there's usually something that helps us. So why not like get ahead of that? So with Gene Keys, it is essentially diving in. Okay, so let me get this straight. So human design is your makeup, but Gene Keys are your energy blocks. And so Gene Key gives you sort of the playbook of how to work within your human design.
Yeah, exactly. Like for him, he's a projector. So, and we could go all into that, but there's 5 different types. So, he had to learn, projectors go through phases. And by the end of, 50 or over, they're in this role model phase. Some of them he is, that's his profile. And so now he can take all this wisdom that he's had, but he had to learn that being what he was in the profile in human design, he had to go through all this to become the role model and teacher. And so then the Gene Keys lifts him to that next level and says, okay, how do I really embody that role model and be authentically me? And it's not allowing my light to dim or be oppressed by, his whole thing is metrics of, he was addicted to social media metrics. How many likes am I getting? How many people are watching it? And really that's irrelevant, but it was holding him back from being who he is, because if there wasn't enough likes, well, then maybe I'm not worth it. Right. And so now I have to find that worthiness within myself first and realize it doesn't matter how many likes. This is what I came here to do.
So you can see how this just like rips the band-aid off, because you can hide behind your stories, you can hide behind your descriptions of what's happening in your life. But when you see your gene keys and your energy blocks, and you have the specific 11 of them, and you start talking with clients about these and how they show up in your life, there's nowhere to hide. It's like hitting things head on. And I think for many of us, we're at the point where we want to hit things head on. We're sick of the repeat in our life where we're kind of stuck in our own decisions.
Yeah. And that's where this can get tough. I many of my clients have told me they hate me in a loving way. In fact, I hear it all the time, and if I don't hear it, then I know I'm not hitting the right chord. And he was one of them. You know what I mean? He'd be like, "Oh, because there isn't, and it isn't. I'm just giving and translating the message. You know what I mean? This is your path, kind of like, with your birth chart and stuff. It's like, this is what you came here to learn. This is what your soul wanted. And I'm just helping you to see that and guide that and go, okay, you can't lie to yourself anymore. It's right here. It's right here. And it keeps telling you that. And you're going to keep bumping into it. And you can keep coming back to me and go, I don't understand. What is this about? And I'm like, that's in your gene key. And he's like, wow, the gene keys.
I love that. I love that. So we have the links below that you can reach out to Beckett if you want to know your gene keys, if you want to know your energetic blocks and tools to get out of it. But before we jump, off this, can you just share a little bit of information on shadow? We hear so much about shadow. You talk about shadow, you talk about gift. Can you kind of give us a little bit more context of what that is?
Yeah, shadow work is the work that nobody wants to do. Right? You know what I mean? It's got this misnomer and it's starting to become popular, like, you do shadow work. And I'm always a big proponent of it because we're not taught in society how to deal with anger, grief, frustration. Yet we came to this planet to experience all emotions, not just happiness, joy, love, all of it. Because when you experience these contrasts, which is your shadow, you get closer to understanding what you do want. If you didn't have contrast, you wouldn't know what that is. And so shadow work is looking at the pieces of ourselves that we don't want to. We don't want to. How am I playing into this, right? How am I playing into the depression? And he realized I'm playing into it because I'm not being authentically myself. So it comes back to me. So shadow work, when you hear people saying that, it's looking at the pieces of yourselves that you might not like, but without judgment and understanding, okay, I see this piece of me. How can I love it and integrate it into who I am and find the gift in that? Because it's trying to teach me something.
So beautiful. So what is on the horizon for you, Beckett?
Oh, I got a lot of things going on. I got the podcast I'm doing, which you'll be on. I have that where I tell other people's stories and really their transformations. And then I actually do a Gene Key hot seat over there if anybody's interested, where I will take one of your keys. And the only thing I ask is that we can put it on YouTube and I will actually talk to you about whatever that key is and where it's coming up in your life. And then I have another 6-week intensive program coming up for Gene Keys and Human Design if anybody's interested.
I love that. I love that. And I think this is perfect timing. Today, this week is all about Valentine's Day, which many of us look outward for love, but really love comes from within.
Yeah.
And the outside just is a mirror of what is happening inside. And so I think that Gene Keys is a great investment in yourself to really get to know yourself better and how you're moving through the world. Because the more you can work around these energy blocks, the more fulfilled you'll feel and honestly more aligned. So I love that this is your area of specialty, Beckett. And I think that it is really a can opener for so many people that are trying to get to the next level of self understanding.
Yeah, it's the greatest gift of self-love. I always say that. If I can't love myself first, I can't give it to other people. And I got to start with me. And Gene Keys really helps us to uncover that and love ourselves to the deepest level.
Well, check out Beckett's links below. If you have any questions, I know that he's on a ton of social media platforms. You can reach out to him directly. But again, this conversation and all the conversations in Together We Seek is to give you insight to the tools that are available to you to better understand not only yourself, but the work you're here to do in the world. So thank you so much for joining us, Beckett.
Thank you, my friend.